Welcome to Repair Shop Reckoning, the race to zero, because chasing the cheapest price is the race to the bottom. And Kevin Brown has spent over 30 years proving that's not how you build a real shop. 3 decades in the trenches, mechanic, owner, operator, leader, through industry shifts, insurance games, bad hires, good hires, and hard lessons. This isn't theory. This isn't corporate training fluff. This is over 30 years of shop ownership experience unfiltered. On this show, Kevin breaks down what actually works: running profitable shops, front counter control, insurance negotiations, leadership, culture, and the mistakes will quietly bankrupt you if you let them. No corporate scripts, no sugarcoating. And yes, somebody might get offended. That's okay. If you want comfortable, Disney's 2 doors down. If you want the truth about this industry, buckle up. This is Repair Shop Reckoning. Let's get to work.
Welcome back. I wanted to start out by, talking about the title of this podcast, why I moved my shop from flat rate to hourly. And I'm going to go down through everything, and I'm going to go ahead and reference the older podcast where I talked about my flat rate, my shop working, flat rate working in my shop inside my four walls because I can control it. Well, things have changed. So, as we know, Jason tells me I'm good when I have my stuff written out so I don't babble and I stay focused. So, we have three parts to this podcast. We have, what I did, where I see the problems are, the second set of problems I see with our industry and where we're going with the younger techs training and everything. And then I'm going to go on to what's going on in the dealer world with the flat rate and all this stuff. So, without any delay, let's get started. So, I'm just going to kind of breeze through my notes and, you're going to see pauses and stuff like this because I'm trying to stay organized so it makes sense and I don't go off on tangents and babble because we all have a tendency to do that, and me especially. I want to talk about something I discussed previously on my podcast, which was flat rate. A few months ago, I talked about how time is wasted for the techs, the dealers, how they have meetings and all kinds of stuff where these guys are expected to do a lot of stuff for free. I even did little clips where we talked about the guys have to walk over to the parts department and look up their prices and parts. People gave me blowback. That's not the way it is. Well, some dealerships, it is the way it is. Other dealerships, they do have it digitally where they can look and they can pick their parts digitally. But some of the guys have to still walk over to the dealer window, and then they realize, man, I'm not making a lot of money because on the way to the window, they're talking to Bob, Fred, Mike, everybody. Then they finally get to the parts. They talk to the parts counter, yada, yada, yada. So without digressing, I wanted to kind of go, talking about flat rate. When I talked about flat rate before, I said flat rate definitely has its problems, and it does. Nothing's changed there. And I also wanted to say, once again, because I got to repeat myself because people just don't listen or they don't go and watch the podcast on that comes out every Friday morning. There's a
Just
plug
watch the
every
clips. Yeah.
Friday morning on YouTube, Repair Shop Reckoning, and watch the whole podcast. So they get a clip of it, which is a hook. Okay, so there's more context to after my statement and before my statement. At that point, it'll make sense. But a lot of people don't do that. So I repeat myself a lot in these podcasts just to stop the bullshit post.
And the funny thing is, when we started out, we'd put out stuff just to inflame people to watch the podcast. Now we put more context into it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I really don't want to freaking argue with people. That's not why I do the social media thing. So, when I want to be clear about something, like I wasn't trying to force it to work in my shop. It worked. We did it for a lot of years, and I made sure every payday that guys got paid. I made sure the jobs were right. We trained our service advisors and dispatched the jobs right. So everybody had their fair shake. If they did what they're supposed to and they produced, they made a lot of money, right?
Yep.
So at the time, my guys were making really super good money. Right up to about a month ago, we started to see a little bit of things going on in our industry that were out of our control outside of our four walls. Okay. So, at that time, we started to see the hours going down a little bit. So, back, if you remember, I talked about it on my podcast. I asked the guys, hey, do you guys still like flat rate? Remember when I did that whole thing? Do you want to stay on flat rate? Absolutely. Well, I like flat rate. We're doing just fine. We make a lot of money on flat rate. I don't want to change. Well, fast forward to last week when I got back from Chicago, Friday, I started talking to Jason and I'm like, man, you look stressed out. And we started talking about what was going on and some of the problems we were having in the shop. And some of the problems we were having in the shop were he didn't think the guys were getting good enough training from him because he's worried about, even though he's on a minimum, spending time, spending the whole time over there rebuilding a rear end, teaching a guy how to rebuild a rear end, a transmission, whatever, a PTO, whatever. Like I trained him back in the day. And we have all young techs. And in our industry right now, it's hard to find techs. So I've always grown the young techs. This is no secret. I've really never talked about it, but you can see my guys are all young.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, it's not. I didn't think I had to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it today because no matter what, there's a fucking critic waiting in the bushes right over there to say something. Well, you never said you had young techs. Now all of a sudden you have young techs. Now young techs are. Shut the fuck up.
Watch the video. You had your team on there. You can see they're pretty young.
Exactly. So when I started talking to him, we started talking about, some of the younger guys seeming to rush because they're worried about their paycheck. So our quality isn't where we thought it should be. These are problems that are just starting to arise as we get busier, right? The guys have pressure on them. There's a lot of work, stuff like that. They're not trained 100%. And, we're expensive, and I expect sterling work every time. So we started talking about training issues. Started talking about, well, what if Jason, say you had a job that paid 10 hours and you went over, you got started to go through it, and then you walked over and you had to help Nick or Jody do something, and it took you a couple hours, but that job paid them X amount of hours, but all of a sudden they did it in under the time allotted because you helped them and you showed them, right? And then on the other end, well, it took out of your day. Maybe that job that you were doing, you would have had it done already, but you're on hourly now, so it doesn't matter. So the quality of the training's there, and the hours are almost going to probably stay the same. Meaning, if you took 2 hours out of your day, you gained him 2 or 3 hours on that job versus him spending a day on it. So I'm kind of thinking maybe the efficiency is going to stay. We'll have to see. But that was one of the things we talked about, and we talked about, we're having problems with parts. Some of these parts on these trucks are on back order. Like I've been waiting for a wiper motor and transmission that comes together for a Freightliner M2 for 2 weeks now. Okay, so that job is sitting out in my parking lot. It's already diagnosed, waiting for the parts. That causes flat rate problems. We have a lot of these private equity groups buying the truck shops and the car shops, and they are profit, 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 and they're worried about all this stuff. So their private equity groups are also not only buying the shops, but they're also buying individual, let's say, just companies with vehicles. So then they say the easiest way for the private equities to deal with it and pull maximum profit out of it, they get rid of their fleet management department and they hire Holman, Enterprise, Wheels, Fleetio, the fleet services where the shop has to actually type the repair order into the shop's program. So you're doing the estimate twice. You're doing it in your program. Then you're going out to their website, whether it's Element or whatever. They use a fleet program now that's all together. You kind of go in there and you can pick which fleet you're at. I forget the name of it right now, but that takes you time to do the second estimate. Then it goes to them, and sometimes their department, this fleet company, has to review the estimate. Then they get back to you 3 or 4 times. We don't like this. We don't like this. What about this price? What about, you go back and forth with them as a service advisor. Then after all that's said and done, it gets shipped off to the company for approval. So think about how much this just got more complicated and how much more time it's now taking to get approval on a job. On a job that we used to be able to pick up the phone and go, yo, Bob, we got van 32 over here, needs ball joints, blah, blah, blah. We send you an estimate. Bob approves it. We get started on the work. It maybe happens within a day or two. Some of this stuff can now take a week, week and a half for some of these fleet companies to get back to you. Okay. So that's a whole another layer that we've put on now, slowing down stuff in the shops getting done. And what does that do? Inherently slows down the flat rate guys.
Yep. Yep.
So we do have a lot of work a lot of the time. So this is not a complete problem. This kind of paint a picture of everything that's going on to slow the things down. So my guys, we started looking at it. And we're like, okay, you guys definitely have made less money, and this has kind of been creeping up on us. It just kind of got bad last couple months, but my guys don't whine. They're like, you have a bad month, whatever. We had a good. It's the start of the year. Let's figure this out, right? So me and Jason sat in the office and we kind of went back and forth and stuff like that. You know, um, we kind of came to the conclusion that we've always grown our technicians in house. I trained Jason, my one of my A techs. He worked with me for 3 or 4 years side by side when I was in the shop. I trained him pretty much. He's obviously outgrown me now because all the new stuff. I don't work on vehicles anymore. So, he was taught by me, and I spent a lot of time training him. I just wouldn't say, go over and do this. I'd be like, this is how you do it. This is why we do it. This is what we look for. Some of the older Clark transmissions and stuff like that we used to rebuild. I'd be like, this is wrong with the synchro. Here's this gear. You got this gear right here. You know why this gear is cut straight? It's a reverse gear. It's going to make noise. It's just a lot of stuff that I talked about and trained him. These guys didn't even know about how much cold cranking amps a starter should pull when they're doing a starter draw test and stuff like that. Back in the day when we learned in college, it was, it shouldn't go over the cubic inch of the engine on startup. Then on ongoing cranking, it should be half the cubic inch. That was all the weird shit that we learned and I taught these guys. And I believe that the younger generation of technicians is losing out on that training because everybody in the shop is on flat rate, nobody's on hourly, and they're just rushing around trying to get their job done, trying to get their paycheck.
Yeah. Yep.
And the shop owners, a lot of them, not all of them are greedy. Okay, let me just go ahead and say this again. When I say shop owners greedy, I don't say 100% of the shop owners are greedy. I don't say 100% of the dealerships are greedy. You don't have independent dealerships that are not owned by a private equity group or a big conglomerate. You have a single operator that still cares about his people, okay? Let me go ahead and say that because everybody always gets butthurt, like, our dealership's different. If it is, great.
Good for you.
Good
Awesome.
for you. But it's not like I'm sitting there trying to pick a fight with everybody by what. You have to sit there and put these little nuances in there, every little thing. It's like, come on, guys. It's like, I'm just trying to give you my perspective on what's going on and what I live in my daily life, okay? Perception is reality. Okay, what I'm going through is my reality, right?
Well, and we've had several conversations with guys from all kinds of different dealerships that have had the exact problems that we're talking about in reverbing all the time. So are there great dealerships out there? Absolutely. Are there bad independent owners? Absolutely.
Yeah. So, back to the thing. So, starting back over before I went on my little rant, say I went off the paper, was my main tech is somebody I worked with for a lot of years and trained him into what he is today and his thoughts, Let me switch my paper here. Go ahead. I spent a lot of time teaching him. We did a lot of things together, We don't have techs coming up. So if you want to have techs to stick in your shop, you got to find good people. You can't find guys that are crybaby little bitches that are young that want to come in and make $1 million. You pay them very well. I pay above scale. And you say, okay, here's the deal. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to train you, but I expect X, Y, and Z out of you. One thing that I learned over and over again when I'm talking to these consulting clients, I say, what's the expectations you put on your guys? Do you look at them and say, hey, I have everything in place. You should be able to produce 40 hours a week by the way I bill. If I bill 60 hours, if I sell 60 hours worth of work, can you do 60 hours worth? Can you do 40 hours worth of work? Tell me what, I'm going to tell you what is expected of you. But a lot of the guys don't even put expectations on their people. They don't have meetings. They don't do this. The owner's on vacation. You have a manager that's half cocked running around trying to do the best he could. He doesn't have the training. The systems aren't in place. So everything's kind of chaotic. And that's where my new tagline came to. It's from chaos to control. With systems put in place in your shop is going to go from being chaotic to you're going to be in control. And I will tell you, you can pick up the phone right now and call Lincoln, Phil, Jason, anybody, and say, what happens when we go outside of our procedures at our shop? We just talked about this. It's a fucking mess. Whenever there's a problem in our shop, we have gone outside of our procedure. 100%, without a doubt, that is the God honest truth.
Yep.
It sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm a micromanager, but we have these systems. When we go outside of them, shit happens.
It's the same thing in my business. You do something, you get caught up in the thing, you skip a couple things in your procedure, and every single time it's a dumpster fire.
It's like shit happens when you party naked. Remember back in the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay, shit happens when you go outside the freaking procedures and we have in place. I've taken a lot of time to beat myself up over the years to make these procedures work.
Yep.
And I've kind of like changed them just to get them to the point where we're right on point. So I got good young technicians. They're working hard. They care. They want to learn. We talk about it. We have training every week, but they still need to develop their skills. Like, for instance, yesterday, we were having a problem with some of the younger guys with their write-ups. They're being lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we did is we printed their write-ups and we took them upstairs, and we had the ATEX write-ups, and we took them upstairs. And after lunch, we sat around for an hour, and we started out by taking the shitty write-up, and I said, okay, this is your write-up. I want you to sell it to the customer. Who wants to be the customer? I'll be the customer, Jason. They had to sell this disjointed piece of shit to the customer. It was all written wrong and written screwed up. Okay. They were like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, there's no word flow. I got this over here. This is not spelled right. Oh my God, this sentence doesn't make sense. I said, okay. So let them struggle through. All of us went around the table, okay, and read it and tried to sell it. But we're like, cool. Then we gave them the good write-up. And then we went around the table and they're like, this is so much easier to sell with the good write-up. Okay, then they felt the pressure of the service advisor.
So huge.
Trying to sell a piece of shit write-up.
Yep.
They're like, wow. So I do stuff like that. Like, next week, we're going to go downstairs, we're going to call each other on the phone. Then we're going to record the phone calls, and we're going to listen to the phone calls and count how many times you said, Because there's no doubt about it, that's a training issue. When you can't talk to your customer fluidly and smoothly as a service advisor, you're like, I don't know. Okay, what are you conveying to them? You don't even know what the fuck you're selling them. Yep. You don't believe in what you're selling because you said 100 times. These are all training issues, and I'm kind of going down this list, all right? And the reason I say that is, if you're sitting there having problems with your flat rate techs making money, but their write-ups are bad and their cycle time, there's to sell the jobs, are terrible because the service advisors have to take the time to rewrite the whole estimate because you're not doing your job, there's a problem. That's a training issue.
Chaos to control.
Right. You got part shortages. We got back orders. We got customers not approving the work right away, which we talked about the fleets. You got vehicles sitting around waiting on parts. The place gets plugged up. It's hard to move around the parking lots and stuff like this. When you got vehicles sitting there for 2 or 3 months for parts, you have mad customers. That I don't care about because I'm not Ford, I'm not GM, I'm not Chrysler. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as like, I can't control what goes on in their plant. Okay. It's just the way it is. Your bays are getting tied up, so you're constantly pulling stuff in and out, trying to get this stuff to work. It just slows the whole workflow down. So when the workflow slows down, the flat rate starts to create problems because these guys start worrying about money. They start worrying about this. They start, well, I don't really have enough to do. They start to get bad attitudes. You just kind of digress. This is the things I see happening. It didn't start to happen in my shop, but I stopped it when I noticed right away that he was stressed out. Because my key guys, when they get stressed out, they usually don't get stressed out. They don't complain. They don't whine. So when I notice it right away, okay, I'm like, okay, we need to go in the office and talk about what's going on. Well, my dog got ran over yesterday. Well, I'm sorry I didn't run your dog over. I feel bad. I understand you're upset. Cool. That's not something I can control. I'm not a leash manufacturer. I didn't tie his dog up, right?
Yep.
Or let his dog go out. But, if it's something that's going on in my shop, I do care because these guys are the lifeblood of our business. Let's face facts here. Service advisors and technicians, if you take either one of them in the shop, it'll cause a problem. Here comes the technicians. I could do the service advisor jobs. Yeah, I'm sure you could for at least 20 minutes, and then you'd be buttered because somebody would make you mad and you'd flame out or whatever. Once again, not all you technicians couldn't do the job, but most of you couldn't do the job, but some could, right?
Well, and I love what you said that you did the role playing and you had the techs do the service advisor part with the bad description because everybody wants to bash the sales guy or the service advisor or say they're not worth it or no everything else until they're put in that situation and then they realize actually they do a pretty difficult job.
Right. So, we started to go through it and we started saying, okay, what's the problem with, Jody, the other young guy? He's a B-Tech. He's Russian. He's rushing because, he needs to make money. He's got income demand. He's got this, which I will say a lot of them are not his problems. It's just life problems, but they're still problems. They're still on his mind. So
Yep.
he's rushing. He might not be doing X, Y, and Z the correctly because he's trying to worry about his paycheck. I'm flat rate. And these are all problems that just started to crop up at my shops. Like they have really truthfully not been a problem till lately when all the other stuff just started adding up on it. And guys are going to say, oh, this is bullshit. This has been a problem, blah, 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 blah. Maybe in your shop, yeah, but our systems, we really didn't have a lot of these problems, but they did start cropping up recently. Okay. So, one of the things was, my ATAC, Jason, he was on flat rate, but he also had a guarantee. When we started that guarantee, we're like, okay, you're going to be put on this guarantee because you have to train the techs, you have to help them. But when it came to the point where he was helping them more because the jobs that we were getting in are just more complicated, and this might change in a month or two. I don't know. But right now the jobs are complicated, so they're taking a lot more of his time, even though he's got to guarantee his regular paycheck's going down because he's spending time helping these guys, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, yeah, I can kind of get this, and it's not fair to him. Okay. So what ends up happening, everybody starts rushing. The guys are trying to move fast because they're on flat rate and they're trying to make, more hours because there's less work. So they're trying to do this, or it ends up being a mess. We were we're not slow. It's just like I said, it's just like the parts. I would have to say right now, one of the biggest problems we have is the parts availability on the medium trucks. Not so much the parts from the auto parts stores and stuff like that. They have rotors, brake pads, calipers, and stuff like that. It's, the fuel lines, the trans lines that have special fittings on them that you get from the OE. It almost seems like the OE, which I know they're not doing their job because I know people that work at Ford. I know people that work at GM. And I was talking to a guy at a birthday party this week that works at GM. He said, well, I said, man, I can't get parts. He goes, yeah, nobody comes to fucking work. He goes, ever since we had the work from home bullshit, he said, I'll tell you what happens at GM. Monday and Tuesday, nobody is there. They're working remotely. Wednesday, everybody comes to the office. Everybody's there. Thursday, some come to the office. Some are working remotely. And Friday, everybody.
Wow.
He said the same is pretty much going to talk to a guy a few weeks ago at Ford. It's pretty much the same way. Like they don't even see their teams. They just report to their managers and everybody's kind of just does their own thing. So it's almost like it's on autopilot or something. I don't know. And it makes me wonder, like, where are all these parts? Like, for instance, 6.2 GM radiators. You can't get an OEM one right now. They're on back order. Why? Well, you guys are putting warranty engines in that you have to put a transmission because of the coolers and the lines and stuff like that. When do you think GM would order more radiators? So they would have them. Nope, they're not. That's on back order. So you have to get them aftermarket. And then a lot of times you have a problem with the aftermarket fitment or this or that, or getting them even now. They're starting to get a little bit harder to find in our area.
That's crazy.
So
That's crazy.
these are things that like I'm seeing. And, no matter what I say and how I portray this, here the haters are going to come out.
Absolutely.
Okay. But, my thing is I've always built great technicians in my shop by training them in-house. So I don't want to change that. So my thought, if it costs me a little bit less, a little bit more in sales, like I don't do as big as sales numbers, if my shops don't do as well, I'm okay if I'm investing in the future. I'm long gaming it. You know what I mean? Like eventually these younger guys will start producing more and more. Okay. And we'll get it fixed, So after we came to the conclusion, we decided to move everybody to hourly. Me and Jason sat there and we're like, okay, let's just go ahead and move everybody to hourly. He's like, okay. I said, well, what we have to do is we have to figure out what they made last year, and then we have to do an average, and then we have to give them a bump. We're going to give them more money. And I will tell him his was it was over 10% of his pay. Because my thought was, okay, I can afford to do it on the front end right now because I don't ever want him to think, well, wait a second. I know all this is going on, but now we're super busy and everything's going really good. I could be making a lot more money.
Yeah.
So when I did his average of last year, and then I added X amount of dollars to this year, so he actually got a raise when he got put on. He's on salary. Now, once again, our shop works 40 hours a week. We do not work over 40 hours a week. So we have to be efficient enough to do our numbers still. Okay. So here comes the freaking talking heads, well, these guys are going to be butthurt if you get busy and these guys, everything's going good. They're going to say, oh, I could be making more money. My guys aren't like that because I care about them and they care about me. I don't want to sound like freaking gay over here, but we all have a good relationship that they know I care and they care. Okay. So it's fixed a lot of problems back and forth. And, and I will tell you right now, I don't worry about their production dropping because they know what's expected of them. We're still going to do the efficiency reports. We're going to still say, why did this happen this week? We're still going to do all this. They're just on hourly now. Okay. And that stopped a lot of other problems for me too, because now I don't have to worry about some of the accounting I did. Well, he's halfway done with this job. Let's pay him halfway this week. And then next week we'll take that half back. And all that shit's all gone now. They punch in and out, they go home. We'll see how it's going to go. So far, they all hit their numbers. Their first week, nobody's changed. But I believe that, they understand what's expected of them. Hey guys, I'm investing in you. I'm making sure you're taken care of. We still gotta run a shop because nobody's gonna win if we go out of business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and did that and moved it on now. So I sit there and I said, okay, now I need to think of some rebuttals because here comes the haters. This is what's going to happen in your shop because you don't know what you're doing, Mr. Brown. Okay.
Because you don't know.
Right. So now I know what some people are going to say. It was what the paper says. And I want to go ahead and tell them why. Okay. Now your guys are going to slow down. I already addressed that. We have metrics in place. They still know what's expecting them, right? How many of you guys that go to work every day, do you know what's expected of you? Do you even know what's expected of you of that day? Do you have a meeting in the morning, a 5-minute powwow where you get with your service advisor or your managers and go, you have X, Y, and Z, they're numbered. These are the jobs I need out of you today. Is that a problem? Well, that one might be a problem because that part's been on back order. You look at the service advisor, it's been on back order. You kind of understand what's going on, right? Okay, but you can get these 3 jobs done today. Or if you can't get this one job, can you do this alternator job? Whatever. Absolutely. No big deal, right? They know what's expected of them. How many of you guys walk in and nobody says nothing to you and you're expected just to figure out what the fuck is going on? Yep. Okay. It's kind of weird. A lot of shops don't have organization. They have one guy telling everybody what to do. And I'll get into that. There's nothing pushing them anymore. Why do they give a shit? They're getting paid hourly. There's nothing to push them. Yes, there is. Me. I'm like, dude, I put you on hourly because you said you weren't making a lot of money. We gave you more money. I want this amount of work out of you. What's the problem? I will not have that problem with my people. I guarantee you I will not have that problem with my people.
I'll guarantee you one of those problems because I know you will have those conversations.
Yeah, and I will literally go up to them and say, I don't know what's going on here. And they will fix it. I'm not even worried about it, They're not on flat rates, so they won't hustle. It's pretty much is the same one. And my guys still hustle. They do. They care about what they do. We have good guys that work for us. Everybody cares about their job. They care about the shop, our reputation. The one more thing I beat in their head, we care about our reputation over and over and over again, But, that's how my shop works. I can't control what everybody else is doing unless they're one of my consulting clients, and I kind of built it into their everyday thing. Okay, first thing of the day, you have to get everybody together and tell them what's expected of them today. That's the number one thing people are lacking, we also run our shop on metrics. We all know I do my freaking numbers. So I know every week before I even get there on Wednesday today, I was here at the body shop. My payroll down there sitting there, I did the payroll here, but there's a report on my desk. It is already freaking gone over with Jason, Lincoln, and Phil, my son, the service advisor, and Jason's the other owner. And they will already have notes. If this column's low, this is what happened. They've already researched it. And by that, I've already taught them how to read their own numbers. So someday when I'm not around, these guys know where their numbers need to be. How many shops are that organized where their service advisor, the 2 service advisors, my son and Phil, Lincoln and Phil, and Jason, my A-Tech, who's part owner, know where the numbers should be without my input. And then I show up and they're like, hey, sublets was a little bit low last week. We sold a bunch of truck tires on a gravel train, and the markup on that. Yep, okay. They can literally tell me what happened. Okay, that doesn't happen at shops. They can't even tell you the numbers, period. They can't even tell you what their guys produced last week. Okay?
I just want to make note of it takes great leadership, and it takes having a finger on the pulse and understanding what's going on in your business. And this is from realizing your guys are down, the production's down, they're kind of down, understanding that maybe there's a change happening. And I know how passionate you've talked about flat rate all this time, to be able to say, all right, this isn't working now. What are we going to do? And then also, again, knowing your numbers. That's what takes that chaos and turns it into control. When you get chaos when you have no idea what's happening in your business, when you're not dialed in, when you don't have your fingerprint on or your finger on the pulse there.
Absolutely. And I could give you something that one of my clients that has a shop I started working with. I'm like, "What's up with that?" He's like, "Oh, that's a walkie-talkie." I'm like, "Fucking bingo." I ordered walkie-talkies for the shop the next day for both shops. Game changer. When I went to Chicago last week, I told Steve, the owner there, one of my clients, I'm like, "Buy these walkie-talkies off Amazon." He's like, "Oh my God, what a game changer." Something that simple that I
Yeah.
learned from other guy. I'm not going to say I came up with that idea. I didn't fucking even think of it. I used to have a Nextel phone.
Me too,
Okay,
me too.
everybody did, but
That's
now
the first thing I thought of when you said walkie-talkie. Was
right.
my
And I
Nextel
looked
phone.
at it, I'm
Yeah.
like, should I get them rapid response radios? And my son's like, yeah, they're $1,500 for 5 of them. We could talk to each other across the world. I go, we're not in fucking China, bro. I don't need to talk to you guys when I'm not at work. But we've stopped a lot of the foot traffic now. Hey, what about this? They could respond. So everybody's staying in their base.
Oh, that's killer. Yeah.
So the efficiency there has been fixed, which is pretty cool because a lot of these guys' shops are not set up as shops. They're built as other businesses. So there's a big disconnect from the front to the back. There's a long walk, which could take you a lot of steps during the day and a lot of wasted time,
Yep.
So, we build hours, we track performance. Now, another thing people say, what happens when you get super busy again? I've already addressed this, so I'm going to address it again. We did their average last year. We bumped up their pay quite a bit and said, hey, even if you had a super good year, I don't think you would have hit this number more. How can you afford just to give raises arbitrarily when you move guys from flat rate over to hourly and to salary? Because I know my numbers and I make money. I'm profitable. I have a savings account. I know exactly what's going on. Will it knock a little bit of money off my bottom line, my net? Absolutely. But what do I care? If it costs me, say it costs me $100,000 next year off my net, but my guys are all happy and healthy. Is that worth $100,000? Fuck yes, it is to me.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want people to be miserable to come to work. That's the problem with our industry. That's why people are leaving. Okay, because they treat techs like shit. This over and over again. Technicians are the lifeblood of these businesses, and the service advisors are. Unfortunately, there's a service advisor problem too, and it's a lack of training. Here, go ahead and put this guy in this chair and see what he does. So I'm going to get back to the point here. But if you want to go back on, if they want to go back on flat rate, say it's something changes and they got, man, we could be making a lot more money on flat rate. We'll go back to flat rate. I already know it works in my thing. If all the parts get fixed, back orders get fixed, and these guys want to go back onto flat rate, I don't give a shit. I can do whatever I want. I'm not owned by anybody. So I just go, okay, next week we're going to flat rate.
It makes you fluid.
Yeah. And you know what? We've often talked about me over the years just spinning on my heel and changing something one day. Decide, I don't want to do this anymore and change it. We decided one day I wanted to start a podcast over a year ago. Look at me now. It's blown into consulting. I have my own podcast studio. Okay, I don't fuck around. If anybody knows, I don't fuck around. I get shit done.
Yep.
And I move fast. And you know that. I drive you nuts sometimes. Like, dude, what's the fucking problem?
And I love it, though, because, and again, you talk about, like, development and it's surrounding yourself around, like, a high standard, because then you grow and the people around you grow. If you're doing that from that development piece and you have a high standard, if people are plugged in, they will grow.
Absolutely. So I'm not married to one pay system.
Yeah.
I can do whatever the hell I want. If me and Jason decide next week that these guys all of a sudden start pulling their pickles and everything's a problem, we'll change something else up. We'll have to change it or whatever. I don't think this is going to be a problem in my shop. I really don't, because I watch it that closely and my management watches that closely. And they would report to me, hey, this is going on. I see my son every night. I try to not talk about work because I start to get all flamed out and shit. When something's going on, I want to deal with it right then, So,
Oh, no. I couldn't picture that. Oh, no. Are people getting messages?
Yeah, everybody getting messages, right. So, let me go ahead. I probably already went ahead. I did already. Okay, it just said, I'm not owned by corporate America. I'm not owned by a private equity group. I care about the people that work for me. So I freaking did this. I changed it. And like I said, if I make a little less money, it doesn't matter to me as long as everybody's happy. Because at the end of the day, for me at this late in my career, when, I got maybe 5 to 7 years left, I'm not so much worried about the money. I'm worried about being healthy and my guys being healthy and everybody making a good living. You know what I mean? I'm 55 years old. So if you're not major wealth by the age of 55 or so, you should be getting pretty close to being kind of in your groove where you can afford things. Your $40 is not going to break you one way or the other. And I think a lot of these shop owners have never made it there because they've never put the systems in place because they're too busy working on cars. And like I said before, if you work on cars and you're a business owner, you're going to get fixed cars. If you learn the business end and you hire people to work on cars, you're going to have a healthy business. But a lot of these guys don't do that.
And I would say right now, if you're listening and you're like, that's great, but I couldn't afford to pay my guys more money. I couldn't afford to make that change without worrying about my bank account. Then you need these systems and these processes. You need to tune into this podcast even deeper.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with that. So let's go into the consulting and training. And the reason I'm going into the consulting and training is because pretty much to give these guys an idea how I got to where I'm at. We just came through just changing my pay structure in my shop. It would be a huge deal for some shop owners to go, man, okay, I really got to commit. Okay, let's back this up. I want you, Mr. Technician, 100% to commit your life, your health, your well-being, your financial future, and everything to me on flat rate. If I'm a mediocre shop owner and I really don't have money to do advertising, everything like that, I just hope to God enough work comes in for you to make a decent living. You, the shop technician, come up to the owner and go, hey, can I get a little bit more money? Man, I can't afford that. Why can't you afford that? Because you're a shitty fucking business owner. You don't know your numbers. You don't know how to run your business. You're too fucking arrogant to say, I need help. Some way or another, you're too arrogant to say you need help. And there's a lot of shop owners that have a big misconception going on in their head. I have a badass shop. Chances are you really do have a badass shop. You'll probably fix anything that comes through your door. You're an awesome technician. And then you go up front and the bills aren't done. The customers are pissed off. You're broke. You don't know how much money is in your bank account. You don't know what your profit margin is. You don't know what your parts cost markup is. You don't know anything, but you can know how to fix cars. But you're the baddest motherfucker with a wrench. That's probably very true, like I said. But let's go ahead and look at the other side of it. That's what people don't go. I consider it three parts. I consider the front end, which is your software and all your shop management program that your technician or your service advisors have to write, sell your jobs, go ahead and do a gross sale amount, right? Here's what we need to do. So when it all flows through the grinder, it comes out and we have a net, right? We have a gross and then we have a net, right? Then we have the front end, we have the middle, which is the technicians doing the work and all that. And then we have the back end. People forget about the back end. Okay, so if you have a great shop management program and your technicians are doing great, but there's no QuickBooks or nothing on the back end, guess what? There's a problem. You don't even know how much money's in your bank account. You know how bank account is it overdrawn? What are you paying in credit card fees? Yada, 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 yada. Okay, all that stuff matters. And a lot of these people don't put that together. It's like you could take two hats, a red hat and a blue hat. When you're out in the back as a technician, you should be the baddest guy wearing that blue hat around. You're the owner. You're the guy that started the business. You know what the hell's going on, right? You take the blue hat off, you put the red hat on, you walk up front, you should know that system 100%, right? The back end stuff can be dealt with a bookkeeper and stuff like that. That's hired by you, that works for you, with metrics in place and stop losses in place so you don't get ripped off. Because anybody who tells you as a consultant, oh, just hire somebody to go ahead and watch your finances and pay your bills and do all that stuff and give them a stamp to your checking account has lost their fucking mind. They have lost their mind.
Yep.
Or I had a customer the other day say to me, we gave him a quote on his brakes. He's like, I need to call my accountant to see if I have enough money. I said, sir, it's $800 to do the brakes. I said, I do business consulting. I said, the guys are at lunch when you call and I'm talking about your brake job. I said, if you have to call your account for $800 to see if you have $800 to do your brakes, you should hire me. I said, because nobody in their right mind has to call their accountant to see if they can spend $800 out of their business.
What do you say?
That's just something I say because I really don't know how much money I have right now. I have to go look. I'm a disorganized mess. He said, do you do landscaping companies? And I sat there for about 20 minutes and talked to him about how he should just do some easy, basic stuff. and how he should download a program called Intuit and start putting his stuff in there, in and out of there. And he's just like, man, thanks. I said, yeah, okay. And he didn't end up having the money to do the breaks, which is fine with me. He was a nice guy. I talked to him. I'm not going to be a dick to him.
Yep.
But I identified it right away. I need to talk to my accountant.
Hold them out.
You just want to sound important or what? Like, it was kind of like, So, I went to Chicago last week I meet a guy named Steve. He owns Chicagoland Diesel and Auto. This guy is a 35-year-old version of me. He is fucking awesome. He is Mr. Go-Getter. His attitudes are pretty much the same as me. It was like when he's talking, I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, my God, this guy could be my son the way he talks. He's on it, And we got to talking about some of the stuff that goes on in his shops. And one of the things that happened when we were there was his guys were coming up with this fuel head. They're like, look at this. We can't get it to run right, but if we hook fuel to this, it runs perfect here. But we think it's sucking air. We just don't know where, blah, 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 blah. And we're going over it. And we're looking at it. We're talking. And, they go out of the room and we kind of go on with our life. Well, last night we were talking on the phone about, it came up and he's like, yeah, that fuel head he brought in. I'm like, yeah. He's like, it was sucking air out of the dip tube, the dip straw in the fuel tank. And I chuckled. I said, you grew up working on mechanical diesels, 8V71s, 4V71s, 672s, Detroit diesels, the older Cummins, the older Cats, stuff like that, even Perkins. And I said, the number one tool I used to have in my toolbox was clear line. I said, because either them things had a mechanical problem or they were sucking air somewhere. And I said, so when they would come in running bad, the very first thing we would do is start systematically at the fuel tank. We'd put clear line in it, get it bled out, get it running. Okay, there's no air there. Let's look at this fuel housing. There's no air there. Oh, there's the air. We would fix the air leak where it was sucking air. It's kind of like, for the people that are not mechanical, listen to this podcast. If you have a straw in your McDonald's Coke and it gets a hole in it, how irritating is that? You're trying to drink, but you're sucking air and it's not coming. That's no different than a diesel engine trying to suck fuel through a hose. If it's got a hole, it gets air and it gets aerated. It starts to fuel, it runs bad.
Makes sense. Yep.
So sure as shit, he's like, Steve said I had to get involved in it. I went over there and I'm like, okay, why are we checking it here? Check it here. He's like, sure as shit, we check it there, and it's got a crack in the dip straw. That might not be exactly how he told me the story, but at the end of the day, it should have been checked at the fuel tank, and in the dip straw was cracked at the top, sucking air. They put a dip straw in. He said he keeps 5 different ones in stock because there's 5 different models in it. Truck's fixed. That was a training issue.
Yep.
Now, like me and him were talking, is that a training issue from 1980? No, nothing's changed in the fuel system. Maybe, yes, it's all electronic. It's got different style injectors. They're not mechanical injectors. They're HUE injectors or they're electronic injectors, however, whatever configuration the engine is. But the basic premise is it still has to suck fuel from the tank. Whether it's electric fuel pump sunken, mechanical, it still has to suck that fuel. And that's where you go back to the basics. You keep it simple, stupid, the KISS, right? And I think that's what's missing in our industry is training. And that was one of the reasons we made the decision to slow our shop down to the point where we could take the time to train these young guys. And I even said, hey, once a week now, we're going to train them on the front end. We're going to train all these young guys with all the phone calls and the selling of jobs and show them why it's so hard when they do this stuff. Train everybody to give them knowledge because knowledge is power. Okay? And that's what I do with these consulting clients. Steve is an awesome mechanic. He's like, my fucking shop's a goddamn fucking mess. It's a zoo. Without me, it's going to crash and burn. I'm sitting there out my window going, pull this in base 7, do this. And I'm like, everything's in my head. He's like, if I don't come to work, we're fucked. Oh, wow. He said, we do crazy sales. But I'm allowed to talk about this. I asked him, he said, it's true. I said, okay, you have, I think he's got 7 techs or 9 techs, one or the other. He did about $1 million more in sales than I did at my truck shop, but I did mine with 3 guys, 40 hours a week.
Yep.
He did $1 million more with 9 guys working 60 hours a week.
Oof.
So what does that say for my efficiency?
Yeah. More More is less in this
Right.
case.
And
Yeah.
my net was more because when I started going through his numbers and stuff like that, we started showing what levers to pull, what needs to be corrected, what needs to be fixed. And you would have picked up another $853,000 last year with the numbers you did by not having any more work, any more employees, no more work coming in. Nothing would change besides you would move the needle a little bit on some of your billing, and you would have gained that much. He was like, "Oh my fucking God." And I said, let's go ahead and back into this and show you that this number's true. And we went back and we backed into it. We went forward, we went backwards, we figured out the number. And he's just like, yeah, holy shit.
Wow.
And I go, can I talk about that in the podcast? He goes, fuck yeah, it's true.
It's true.
He's like, it's true. It's a true statement. Okay, so think about this. How much money is being left on the tables at these shops because the shop owner's not trained how to do his numbers?
$850,000 minimum.
Can you imagine that?
Man.
Can you imagine having another cool $1 million worth of profit in your business?
It's insane.
That's literally money left on the table. That's not sales. That was freaking, what he would, it's insane.
Yeah.
So, my thought is when you go back to this, guys are struggling to pay their bills and stuff like that, but they don't think they can hire somebody to help them because they think they can't afford it. Just like they can't think that they can give a guy $1 an hour because they can't afford it. I'm going to tell you something right now. When I was broke, if a guy came up to me and said, I need $1 an hour raise, I'd give him $1 an hour raise. I've never been in a position as broke as I was not to be able to figure out how to give a guy $40 more an hour, say $40 more a week.
Yeah. Yeah. $40.
$40.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like a no-brainer to me. Especially if the guy's not going to freaking leave. This the whole 9 yards. Like,
Yep.
But there's guys that sit there and go, I just can't afford that. Or they're fucking greedy and they could afford it. They're like, I can't afford that. But I'll tell you what, I'll see you next week when I get back from vacation. Right now, I got to go catch a plane. I'm going skiing. I'm going there for the week, but have a nice weekend. What does that convey to the employee?
I have a former client. One of their employees was going through my boot camp just recently, and they were struggling with money, and their techs were not getting jobs. They were not getting paid. They were all worried about not being able to pay bills. In the meantime, the company was planning a big Christmas party, taking them out like go-karting and all this different kind of stuff. And the salesperson was working with me, told the owner, like, hey, like, I know that they're struggling for money and they're worried about money. Is it going to be like a good communication that we're going to now take them out to this party and we're going to buy them drinks and we're going to like pay their bills, then go to this party? It was like, what is this communicating?
Yeah.
It's just the way some people run their businesses. Let's put money into this party and appreciate our guys while they're not making money.
Yeah. Like, I don't understand a lot of the stuff that goes on with these companies when they say they don't make a lot of money, but
where are you putting your money?
Where you're putting your money. Or if you are, why can't you net? Like, what are you net? Like, you don't even know what you're taking home. You don't even know what you're making. Like a lot of these guys, they'll take all the money out of it. And if you're the business owner, you're taking a lot of the risk. So let's be very clear here. People are like, we're this, we're that. Yeah, but you know what? At the end of the day, if you technicians or you service advisors quit and go to another shop, the business owner's still there. So he has a lot of the risk. They don't realize, this is one part that people don't understand. The business owner takes all the risk. He takes the liability. He takes the risk. He takes everything. Yeah, if you're a mechanic and you screw up and mess something up, you might have to be in the deposition, but who is going to take it? The shop owner is going to have to get sued and go through all that type of stuff, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing that people need to understand, that yes, you guys are very valuable to us, but you can't hold business owners hostage either, because they do take a lot of the liability. So, if they do go on vacation and stuff, they're just like you at the end of the day. So,
Yep.
Now I want to go to part 3 of this podcast, where the dealership problem. Okay, I got to thinking about when I was doing this whole laying everything out. I'm like, okay, well, how does this fit? If I can't make this all work, it brings me back to the
dealership doing it.
The dealership doing it, because we know they're not as organized as me. They might be up at the top. They might know where their numbers are, obviously, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I'm a small independent shop owner who watches my numbers every week and makes sure his technicians get paid, and I monitor my productivity and everything else, right? And I can't even make flat rate work as of right now, okay, How in the world are dealerships making it work? So they have 20 technicians, multiple service advisors, parts back orders, cars stacked everywhere, approval delays just like us, and service advisors who aren't trained very well. Okay, at least I can say I train my people and I'm training them more now, right? This is a training issue. So if you're having trouble making it in my shop, making it fair, how are they making it fair for the technicians in the dealerships? And is there a bigger problem in our industry? And where does it start? Okay. We talk about this technician shortage, right? But the technician shortage just didn't start. They were driven to this. They were driven out of the business, okay, by greed, flat rate, everything else. Once again, flat rate works in some shops still, I'm sure. And guys come on my posts all the time, say, I love flat rate. I've never changed it. Flat rate's good when it's good. Flat rate's bad when it's bad. I'm good with my money. I did 90 hours this week. Next week I did 20. It doesn't matter to me. I made a killing this week. I didn't spend every dime I made. I'm smart. And they're usually the older gentlemen that are wise.
Yep.
They're not the young lube tech that starts making money. All of a sudden, he's got a crotch rocket. He's got the new Snap-on toolbox for lights. He's got all the Milwaukee shit, and he owes the tool man his paycheck every week. It's not them guys.
Yep.
Them are the young guys where we all started doing stupid shit, me included, buying the remote control cars off the tool man, all kinds of shit, making payments on it because I was fucking broke, okay? I've had tools repoed when I was a young tech. Dale, he's a Zep rep now. His name's Dale something. He came in, took my 2 ratchets, took my quarter-inch ratchet, my 3. That was the most humiliating thing in my life. It was like $90 worth of ratchets. He came in and fucking took them. You can't pay, I'm taking them back. I felt like such a piece of shit.
No shit.
Yeah.
At work in front of everybody.
Came into Hale's Auto Clinic and said, hey, Dale Sparnhouse, I think his name, something, came in and took them.
How crazy is that? He's still in the industry and he sees you now.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a Zep salesman. Now he tried to sell me soap, but
Zep is not soap? Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm not too proud to say I got my shit repoed. I was terrible with money when I was young, just like every young techer. It all finances start at home, right? If your mom and dad teach you how to use your finances,
yep,
you go through life and you're good financially. You know, Lincoln, my 18-year-old son's great financial, puts money in the savings account, his new cars, saves money, blah, 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 right? So when you look at the dealership financials, something becomes very clear here. And I actually did a thing here. The service department is the profit engine of the dealership. The technicians turning the wrenches are responsible for producing a huge profit. Yet they're working on a system they consistently fighting a clock. Okay? Warranty times that don't pay what the job actually takes, or they get on social media and the job was getting warranty on this, and everybody says, there's a secret, there's a shortcut, you could do this. And all of a sudden, OE figures that out. Then they cut the warranty times down even more on these guys. So you put a system together that says if you're really efficient, you're a go-getter, you could do really well. Oh, you're a go-getter. Wait a second. We need to move the goalpost on you again. You're making too much money. Okay? You get diagnostic time they get cut on. You get parts delays that get hold up jobs. It has to be no different than them. It's been, I think, like 2 months. We finally got a phone call today from the Ford dealership. Hey, you still need that cab corner for that cutaway Transit? We're like, no, we had to find one off of freaking eBay and bought it out of Tennessee and paid 3 times more than it was worth because we needed it. The customer needed their car back. Okay, so the Ford CEO, Jim Farley, sitting there going, it's not this, it's not that, it's not a part shortage, it's a part shortage. You're full of shit. Either you don't care, like Chuck said, you don't know, you don't care, it doesn't matter. The part shortage is still there, and it's not getting fixed anytime soon. You know what I mean? And, not to mention politically, some of this shit, you get the last administration saying everything needs to go electric. This new administration saying nothing needs to be electric. So the GM plants take this plant apart, put this plant together. Like they're going back and forth. And in the grand scheme of things, parts aren't getting ordered or whatever the case may be because there's big shortages. Okay? So why would a young person look at this screen and say, I'd love to be in here. I want to be broke. I want to fight a clock. I want to go to a dealership where they don't care about me, where I can't get parts. That sounds like a great future, right? Work 60 hours, get paid for 35, hope the parts show up. This is not a sustainable system, okay? So that's pretty much the end of my notes, but my thought is, like, if you're going to get these young techs, you need to get these apprentices and you need to pay them hourly. You need to pay these guys, these flat rate techs, hourly or some sign of hourly to train these guys. Now, I'd imagine at the dealerships, you guys get along pretty good with each other. I like the young guy down the way. I help him and stuff like that. But I only can help him to the point where it starts really affecting my paycheck.
100%. Absolutely.
And this is not like a problem that I just realized it was happening.
Yeah.
Okay. In the dealer world, in my shop, we really didn't have these problems, but we started to have the problems with the younger guys pushing, trying to hit their hours, make the money. And that was the system. Hey, I'm not too proud to say that. Like, I had it under control in my shop, but it got out of control and I couldn't control it. There's a lot more. I think there's a lot more stuff dumping in, right? If a guy doesn't do something and it's a comeback and we fix it, okay, sorry, Mr. Customer, we did this wrong, whatever. It's a little uncomfortable. But when you couple it with not getting parts and all kinds of shit like that, that causes a whole nother set of problems, I believe, for the business.
In my observation, I want to like highlight the difference. You talk about like the dealership and the difference between that too, and you think about something that stands out is how many dealership guys are like Jason. They're going to come and be like, "Hey, I need to put more time into training.
Yeah.
I need to put more time into development." You're not getting that attitude a lot of times because you're not having like Mr. Hank Graff or whoever that walks through the dealership and sees that his guy's down and is like, "What's happening?" And they're not gonna, and then have an honest conversation with them. It's a different. You talk about like your guys having respect and being a small business owner and having that finger on the pulse, and they respect you, you respect them. I think it's that give and take. And when you're working in a corporate entity or a dealership, there's that lack of soul. You're right, dead on. They know their numbers. That's not their deficiency. In fact, they know their numbers so well that all they do is look at that guy as a cash cow and that you need to perform and you need to have numbers. They're not looking at it of how can we help you. And so the attitude is different. They could give a fuck less if they're helping their neighbor and their friend, even if it's their neighbor and their friend, because at the end of the day, I've got to eat and pay my bills. And where Jason looks at it of like, hey, I get a percentage of the business. I care about this business. I respect you. I respect him. He's part of the team. I need to put time in and develop him for this whole organization to be better. I don't think you're getting a lot of that mentality from people that are in the corporate or in the dealership because they could give a fuck less about people that give a fuck less about them.
Well, no, it's like, why would they?
Why would they?
There's no upside to them. And it is so funny how, depending on what business you're in, how screwed up it is. Like, at the body shop.
I passed it today on the way in.
Yeah, and I'm like looking at it, and it's out there. The front corner smacked, the box, and the back toolbox is smashed in, and the wall's going to have to come out to do the inside, And I'm like, I told the guy on the phone, it's an insurance job, but I'm talking to the guy from Snap-on, whoever he is, and I'm like, this thing could bump up 20 grand. He's like, I find that hard to believe. That's ripoff. I go, you know what I find hard to believe? You sell them toolboxes for $100,000, $40,000, $30,000, and you don't even freaking blink an eye when you're like, this toolbox is $60,000. It never touched the ground while we were building it and all that shit. And if you give me $150 a week, it could be yours. You have no soul. You'll sell a guy a toolbox that's worth a third of what you're selling it for because it says Snap on it. But I tell you, your job might cost 20 grand. I'm a ripoff. Oh, I didn't say that. The fuck you didn't say that. That's exactly what you fucking said. How many souls have you taken with your fucking financing in your toolboxes
So
and
many.
$40 a week, to the guy and $80 to Snap-on? It's only 29.99%. You don't give a fuck about anybody. So why would I care about what your estimate is on your truck? It's going to cost what it costs for me to make money. Period. I've never seen a Snap-on guy with a freaking tip jar in his fucking truck. Right?
Exactly.
You're like, hey, feed the Snap-on guy. Or, go to his house and pick up a tool. You fucking pull up and you're like, man, I need to be a Snap-on guy. Not that I'm jealous of them, not that I care what they make, but it's like, don't sit there and discredit what I do when you bring me your broke dick truck and I tell you it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. Come on. And it's just like, give me a break. But you go back to the training thing. When I go to these shops, there's just no system in place.
Yeah.
Everything usually goes through the owner's head. Everybody wants to talk to the owner. The owner is the guy. If they don't like what the staff says, they call the owner, or the owner comes up there and he basically says, oh, my service advisor says you can't bring your own parts. Yeah, that's okay. Oh, yeah, bring your own parts because I'm such a pussy of a business owner. I don't know where my numbers are. I don't even know if I made money or not this month. Go ahead and bring your own parts, and I'll just charge you for the labor because I want you to save money and take money out of my pocket. What the fuck is wrong with you? And that's what a lot of these guys do. They don't have no processes. They don't know.
Yep.
Like I literally will not. You've heard me say this over and over again. Once in a while, I'll slip and get involved. When I get involved in any process in my shop, I short circuit and I fuck the whole thing up.
Yep.
I'm the first guy to tell you this. They were literally trying to write a repair order yesterday for the meeting upstairs, and I started talking. They looked at me. I looked at them. I go, yeah, I need to go in my office because I just make everything worse.
Yeah.
We got this. Go relax. We got this. But like, I got to let people do their job. Okay. So if I set a rule and a customer somehow gets around me and calls me and says, well, I can't bring my own parts. What did Phil say? What did Lincoln say? Our policy is no, you cannot bring your own parts. Well, you're the owner. You can change your policy. What would that say about me as an owner if I put a policy in place and I tell my service advisors, you two need to strictly adhere to this policy? Unless somebody calls around me, I'm going to make you look like an asshole. And what does that convey to the customer? Don't listen to what they have to say because all you have to do is go right around them and talk to the big guy and he'll give you exactly what he wants. It's no different than going to mom, going, can I have an ice cream? She says, no. You go to dad, can I have an ice cream? Yes.
That you started a fight with mom and dad.
Yep.
I love I was here last week and I heard you tell somebody they asked you for a discount or something. You're like, I'll have to ask. I'd have to ask the boss. You know? And I was like in here laughing.
Yeah, because it's just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to start short circuiting my processes. And when you do that, once again, you cannot put nobody in charge. And that goes back to what are the rules?
Yep.
Do we know what the rules are? We don't because we never conveyed them. What are the expectations of the service advisors if I tell them no matter what, people aren't bringing their own parts? Unless they call me, then I'm going to make you look like an asshole. And I'm going to say, yeah, you can bring your own parts.
Here's the thing, though. If you're not training your people, you are training your people. You're training them to call you for everything. They're training you to like, and then now you're working all the time. You can't go on vacation. You're stuck to your shop and you're probably operating in chaos.
Yeah, and that goes on a lot. And that was like one thing that Steve says down there in Chicago. And TJ says, pretty much every one of my clients, they're like, I need to get this place so it runs without me.
Yep.
And here's the kicker that I'm going to tell everybody. Right now, if you're thinking about hiring somebody, me, whoever, I'm the only guy that I know that does medium and heavy truck body and repair shops, reckonings, audits, whatever you want to call it, consulting, coaching, is moving into our market. Private equity wants to buy into this market. There's a lot of money in these shops if you run them right. Here's what private equity looks for. They look for a shop where the owner's an absentee owner. He's getting cash flow out of it. Meaning the owner is not there, but he takes a $300,000 a year salary. If I buy this place and I get rid of the owner right away, it's cash flowing $300,000. It's all automatically a profit center for me.
Yep.
And when they buy these shops, say they buy your shop, it's got a $300,000 cash flow. They change some stuff around. They pull all the profit out of it. The minute they buy it for $1 million, they put it in their portfolio. It's worth $2 million. Okay. Then they do a 3 to 5 year roll up. They sit there and they pull every bit of profit out of the shop for the 3 to 5 years, depending on what the plan is. Then they sell it to a bigger private equity group.
They like bleed the turnip and then sell it again.
Yeah. It's brutal. And I was talking to one of the guys that I don't want to mention any of their names, but he's in the medical field. And he said what ends up happening in these hospitals right now, the private equity comes in, they buy the hospital, they refinance the properties and everything. They pull all the money out of it immediately. Then they raise all the prices through the roof to cover the new payments.
Holy shit.
That's why all our costs are going up so high. And they take all the money out of these refis and they give it to the shareholders. So that's why people don't realize it. And I'm sure there's more to that. And that's just the quick and nasty of it.
Yeah.
That's why prices are going through the roof at all this stuff. And us little people are paying for it. Well, not me. I mean, I made my living on back of flat rate people, so I'm wealthy. But
that's why you can now adjust it.
Now I can adjust it because I have so much money.
Make up for your sins.
Yeah, I make up for my sins. But, that's happening a lot around everywhere. So if you're thinking about selling your truck shop or your truck collision shop, you got to get it to the point where it's flowing cash. And it has to operate without you. And that's the number one thing that people don't realize. They're thinking, well, you're going to sell your company to a private equity and you're going to stay there. So let me get this straight. You're going to stay at your own company that you started and stuff and work for some guy. They might bring a manager and say you're 45, a manager that's 22 years old that has a stringent set of rules that doesn't give a shit what you say. And all of a sudden you're a number in your own business and nobody gives a shit what you have to say. That's not the way to go out after you built something.
Plus, they cut your salary from $300,000 to $60,000.
Yeah, exactly. Because they got shareholders to pay for. So, this podcast will be out Friday.
Yep.
On Repair Shop Reckoning YouTube. And I think this is one a lot of business owners need to listen to because we kind of broke down a lot of different stuff. But the one thing that you need to realize when you're a small business owner, you need to be fluid. And if something's not working, you need to pivot on your heel and figure out to go another direction. And you need to take care of your people to make sure you can go in that other direction because without people, you won't have a business and you won't make money.
And we need more Steves and TJs out there that actually go and do the shit. They're like, all right, get the vision and go out and do it because, man, it's life-changing. And we're seeing it happen, with like the TJs. And just, you make that little adjustment and show that guy how to add $850,000 to his bottom line.
You want to know what one of the biggest struggles I get with these new clients is? And you're going to think that I'm fucking crazy for them to write the invoice.
Yeah.
These guys will be behind invoices, 20, 30 invoices behind on billing their customers. And I say to them, what in the fuck is going on? Either me, the owner, I have to write this invoice because I'm the only guy that can do it. And I'm too busy out there fixing cars or helping people or doing this or doing that, talking to customers. Or these customers want their trucks and I don't have time to stop and write the repair order. So let me get this straight. You're fixing trucks all week long, all month long. You're not giving anybody a bill. I just don't have time. Your priorities are fucked up. Because at the end of the day, we all do something. No matter what we do in business, for what? The invoice at the end. What is the last thing you do before you walk out of a store?
Pay a bill.
Pay a bill. So why should it be any different in your repair facility? Why should you be letting somebody run their business on your back? And they always say, well, I really like this customer. He's always really nice to me. Fuck yeah, he is. He picks his shit for free. You haven't billed him in a year. Why the fuck wouldn't he like you?
He loves you.
He loves you. Right?
He's financing his business on your back.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're buying parts and you're running a trucking company and you're fixing the truck. He should give you a paycheck every week. And I run into that with these people. And then they're not disciplined to look at their accounts receivable. Then I'm like, a lot of people owe you over $100,000 and you're sitting here telling me you have no money to pay your bills. I don't. Yeah, you do. It's just in everybody else's bank account. Go ahead and start sending bills out. I don't care. I would tell you what, if I had to work till midnight every night writing invoices to collect money, that's what I would do.
So you can pay your bills and pay your people. And
come on.
That's so much stress. How do you even sleep at night?
Yeah. It's like, you know the problem, you know the solution to the problem, but you won't do anything about it. Right? You know what I mean?
Well, and it's like, it's cool because sometimes easy stuff. And, and I'm going down to TJ and it's like, oh, hey, look at your AR account. And boom, we were there now for 2 days. The next day, he had picked up a check that morning before he came in and met us. It was like $100,000 check or something. It was like really, it was like this, maybe it was $80,000. It was significant.
Yeah. And he starts paying all his debt off.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're paying your debt off. Another one of my clients is like, I usually never had any money left in my bank account at the end of the month. I didn't have any money to pay the bills. He's like, now I have X amount of money in the bank. I'm like, holy shit, I can start paying my debt off. I've been paying my debt off and I've been actually paying myself and I'm paying my bills and it's like not stressful anymore. I'm like, all by fixing your billing. And that leads back into not knowing what you're doing. It's not like these guys wouldn't do it or don't want to do it. They just don't know what the fuck to do.
Yep.
Well, my thought is if you open a truck repair shop and you're not ready to start writing invoices for what you do, that's a problem, guys. Get your numbers together, figure your shit out, call somebody to help you, whether it's me or whoever else. I don't care. I have enough shit to do. Yeah. I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is you got to do something. You can't just keep going on and then go, man, I'm out of business. Because guess what's going to happen to that customer you're not charging? He's going to go right to the shop down the street and he's going to pay that guy. Do you realize over the years, back when Steve owned the place, we cut off one of our customers. That was our big customer. They're out of business now, called C&G Landscaping. They had us like 10 grand. Oh, it's Steve, 10 grand, not me. They didn't have the money to pay him. And he's like, I'm not doing any more work. It came to a head after several months. He's like, I can't afford to do any more work for you. I'm doing all this work. We're not getting paid. We can't even pay our bills. Do you know that them guys went across the street to Mr. Muffler?
Yeah.
And we went over there and I'm like, yo, just so you know, these guys don't pay their bills. They're like, no, they're paying their bills every time they pick up their truck. They pay their bill.
Yep.
He had all kinds of money, just none he wanted to give you because you let him get out in front of you.
Yep.
And why bother?
And that's the thing that would give me so much anxiety is like the further that money sits in an AR account, the less likely you're going to collect that money.
Yep.
They're going to give you every excuse. And I remember being a young sales guy and my first business account. I was so super excited about it. You know, business accounts like to throw around, we'll give you so much business. Can I put this on can I pay it 90-day terms or whatever? And I remember I convinced my boss to let me do this AR account because I'm like, oh, it's this big deal. It's my first big deal. Like, it's so cool. He's like, great, I'll let you put it on an AR account. But if they don't pay it, you have to pay it. I'm like, oh, cool. This guy's good for it. He's going to pay me, blah, blah, blah. A couple months goes by. My boss calls me and says, hey, this guy's still not paying. What's going on? I'm going to need to start invoicing you for it. And I kept calling the guy, wasn't picking up the phone. Finally, he sends me an email and tells me all the things that were wrong with the service. And, you know, he just didn't feel like he owed it anymore. And so he didn't pay it. And so that was my first experience with an AR account, and I'm like, fuck AR accounts. I'm never doing one again. Every single client that ever asked me, I'm like, nope, you pay right now because man, I don't want to be a bill collector constantly chasing you. And again, the further that account gets out, the less likely you're going to collect that money. If you've got $500,000 out there, man, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Yep. People ask us all the time, do you take payment plans? Absolutely. One payment when we're done. Or if it's over $2,500, half down before we get started, and the other half, why? We're qualifying the customer. People are like, oh, you're broke. You have to get money down. No, sir. That's not why I do it. I do it to qualify the customer on some of these huge jobs. We get jobs that are $40,000, $45,000. We got a job right now that ended up being $1,200, so he's under our bogey. Guess what? We got all done with the guy's like, yo, I have no money. Can I pay you $100 a month till it's paid off? We're like, no, yo, you're not. You signed a piece of paper. We're putting a mechanics lien on. We're taking your truck. Well, that'll kill my business. That's okay. We'll own your truck and we'll sell the bitch. I do not fucking care. Does that sound heartless? Absolutely. How did I get to that mindset? From being fucked over the years.
Yep.
That's the problem with these guys. They don't know their numbers. They don't know if they're making money. So they start wanting to give away the fucking baby, throw the baby out the bathwater.
Yep.
They just like, I don't know. Well, this job's too expensive. I have a client, consulting client yesterday. He messaged me and says, how do I reset my approval because the customer declines? I messaged him back on the group text message. I said, tell him that you're not doing the job. You're not going to save him money to take money out of your pocket, your family's mouth to save him money to run his business. So if he wants you to do the job, great. If not, no. And guess what happened? The service advisor told him no. He called right around and called the I won't say his name, and he caved. And then I sent him that message, and he said, uh-oh. And he said, nope, he's 100% right. I called the guy back and said, nope, I made a mistake. I know my service advisor already told you no. The answer is no. And they still did the job. Don't be afraid. Here's where this is a cliche thing. Don't be afraid to ask for that sale.
Yep.
So in closing, know your numbers. It'll make your life a lot easier. Train your people. When you come up with a problem, write a policy out so it gets fixed right away and have them sign the policy and put it in their file. That way, the next time that same problem happens, you can go pull it out of the file and say, when they tell you they don't remember that, you say, here's the policy. You signed it on this date. Everybody have a great day. Have a great weekend. Bye.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Repair Shop Reckoning. If this helped you, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We drop real conversations, real systems, and real solutions every week. We'll see you back here next time on Repair Shop Reckoning.